Yo, what's up, guys? Ladies, gentlemen, fellas, I don't know. I don't know what I'm saying here. Gonna make a video about aspects in Smite 2. Now that Vegas is over, I don't have to be cringe and, hide what I think or not talk about stuff. So, yeah, that's cool. That's pretty cool. Yeah, hopefully people have been having fun with the open beta. It seems like the game's doing pretty well. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who are trying stuff, so I figured I will try to help guide people who maybe haven't played the game in a little while or don't really fully understand everything going on. And yeah, this is the first one of that. So for this one, it's just going to be about all the aspects. So right now there's 20 in the game. There's going to be more coming. If you don't know what's been going on with Smite 2 recently, aspects are basically something you can toggle before you load into game, but after you pick a character. So let's say I pick Anhur, I have an optional thing I can do and in choosing his aspect. And if I choose it, it will shift the character and kind of give him a new ability or a new way that his kit works and take away something from the old kit. So it's supposed to be like a trade-off sort of deal. So Athena is probably the easiest one to visualize. Normal Athena, you alt an ally, give them a shield, give them movement speed, whatever, and then you land there. If there's an enemy there, you hit them, deal damage. Aspect Athena alt targets an enemy. So if you see an enemy on the map or on a ward, you can alt them. They can't get away from you. It doesn't do damage to them, but it increases the damage they take. So yeah, I'll talk about that a little bit more when I get to it, but hopefully that makes sense. Tier is pretty simple. Use every game just means it's broken and or extremely fun, and that it just makes the character straight up better. Really good role dependent is going to be for ones where maybe it helps an off-role character. So let's say, maybe it helps Ra become a support or something like that. Something that otherwise wouldn't be good now can be good. So just a shift, just, trade off, whatever. Do it if you like it. For fun but bad, self-explanatory. And then do not pick ever means that it's not good, and in my opinion, it's not very fun. So those are the tiers. That's what I'm going off of. Also, I'm not judging these based on how strong the character is. I'm judging it off of how the aspect changes the character. So if you are, let's say Khepri aspect is really bad, but the character is really good, that doesn't automatically make his aspect really good. Or vice versa, right? Character is really bad, but the aspect's really good. I'm still going to judge the aspect as being really good, but the character may still suck. Anyways, hopefully all of that made sense. We'll just start in alphabetical order. First up is Anhur. So his aspect is that when you auto attack an enemy god, you get increased attack speed up to a 100% increase, but you no longer gain penetration from your auto attacks. Honestly, I think this is really, really good. I don't know if I'd use it every game because I think the prot shred can be really good and is also really good on like objectives, Gold Fury, Fire Giant, Pyromancer, all of that good stuff. This is really strong for fighting. If you're able to consistently hit one target, it's really, really good. If you can be against characters that are like pretty immobile and pretty easy to hit, I think it's really nice. If you're against a character like Fenrir that's maybe harder to lock down or is a little slipperier, nice, good English, then I don't think it's as good. Athena, I think the Athena aspect is actually really good. I think people sleep on it a lot. I think the ability to alt to an enemy god and have them not be able to do anything about it is huge. Like imagine you're able, later on in the game's life when these characters come out, imagine you're in Athena with a damage build and all you need to do is get on somebody to one-shot them and you're against a Janus. If you try to alt a teammate to get onto the Janus, you're never hitting that Janus. But if you just ward where he's going to come out of base or you see him and he can't get away from you and you can land and taunt him and one-shot him because you have a full damage build, that's really, really strong. It makes her a really good split pusher and makes her, in an interesting way, a really good anti-split pusher. People can't split push on your towers on you because if they do, they'll show in the tower range, which gives you vision, or on creeps, which gives you vision, and then you can just ult to them and kill them. So it's more of a damage Athena thing, but I really don't think it's that bad. I also think you could play it support, and you could like taunt the person in front of you and then ult them to make them take increased damage while you're taunting them. I don't know that that's actually the best thing to do, and I think you'd probably rather have your other ult for most situations in a game, but I really don't think it's that bad. I think it's worth playing with. Baka's aspect, really, really good. I think it's actually better than the Anhur one. I think Baka's solo is super good, and I think Baka's jungle is playable with this thing too. Having cleave auto attacks just makes you clear and farm so much faster. I feel like this aspect is a little bit slept on. I don't know how well he trades in solo. Like, I don't know how his laning phase is, but he does a lot of damage and he's super tanky and he scales really well with farm. So I feel like an aspect that helps you farm faster should just be really good. Bellona is the first one of use every game. I think you should never play this character without the aspect as it is currently presented. Basically, what the aspect does is it takes away the wind up increased damage from your 2. So you spin around, and for each god you hit, it makes you do more damage on the slam of that 2. All the aspect does is take away that mechanic where you get increased damage from the wind up, but it makes you give block stacks and your healing from your 3 to every single person on your team within a certain radius. And it works on objectives. It doesn't just work off God. So you can pull a fire giant with Bellona and then 1 into the fire giant and then auto attack it. And I think it's 9 auto attacks. Like every 3 autos, I think it gives you a block stack. You auto it 9 times and you have 3 block stacks on 5 people going into a team fight. So in theory, the enemy hunter could auto 15 times and do 0 damage. It's really, really strong. It just makes her such a better team character. Her ult gives her teammates a lot of stacks. Now her 3 will heal. Her 1 will give them block stacks. It's really good in jungle. It's really good in solo. It makes her like an interesting support. It's just better straight up. I think it just makes the character better. And kind of think it should be her base kit almost. Like it's just really good. Cern, I think, is unfortunately for fun but bad. His aspect just makes it so that his auto attacks do more damage, but it makes them melee range only. And then it also makes his dash have a cooldown reset. It's actually pretty cool. I could see a world where you could play him jungle, but losing ranged auto attacks on a character that can have ranged auto attacks is just too punishing, I think. And I don't think you really need the cooldown reset on his dash, and I think it's pretty unreliable to get it off. Maybe things will change in the future, or I'll be proven wrong. But yeah, I do think it's really fun, but I think it's bad. Chaac, pretty similar. I'm going to put it in really good, maybe even a little higher. It's like right here. Really good, but role dependent. The problem with the Chaac one currently, so all it does is it makes his rain do damage instead of heal you. That's the whole deal. The ranged rain, so when you axe and then pop your 3 and it puts a big rain circle on the ground, that is not proccing item effects currently. So it's not proccing like Soul Reaver or Heartseeker or whatever you build. However, the rain that is on top of yourself is proccing item effects. If they make it so that both circles proc item effects, this thing will be broken in damage rolls. Like if you can play like Chaac mid or something like that, it'll be really, really strong. But until it does work that way, it's just like it's more solid, honestly, but it should be really good. I'm going to put it really good because I think they'll fix that eventually or adjust it. But yeah. Cupid aspect. I kind of think it's solid, but I think Cupid is just a bad character right now. So what Cupid aspect does is it makes his 1 do less damage, but it heals and shields allies who are within a certain range when it pops. So let's say I'm a Cupid and my Khepri plucks somebody and I heart bomb them, and the heart bomb goes off while my Khepri is still on top of them. It will heal and shield my Khepri and do damage and possibly stun the enemy that I hit it with. So it makes him a really good character at being like kind of a support utility character in a game with a lot of melee people who are fighting. So if it was a really melee heavy game, I actually think Cupid has a really good support kit and a lot of utility in general. He has healing on his ult. With this aspect, he has healing and shielding on the 1. He has healing on his 2. He has a strength and int buff potentially on his 2 as well. and he has an attack speed buff on his 3 if people walk into the dash. He has a lot of really good support utility things going for him, and I think as a support, he's actually a playable hunter support. The problem currently is that there's 2 items that basically make it so that you're never going to hit anyone with your ult, which is Stampede, which is super broken, and Hussar's Wings, which one person buying it makes them immune to slows permanently while they have it on just as a passive. They just can't be slowed, period. So they can just always walk out of your ult. If it wasn't for those 2 items, I actually think Cupid would be pretty viable as support, and I think this aspect would be really good on him. Danzaburo, I think, is also a similar solid one. What his aspect does is he loses the 2 deployable that he throws that sits on the ground and taunts enemies, but he summons 2 clones instantly when he pops his 2, and it makes all of his clones do more damage. This is actually a split push aspect. Like, if you are Danzaburo and you split push and you pop your 2, and then you auto attack a Phoenix, and maybe you proc like an item effect or something like that, you slam towers and Phoenixes. Like, you absolutely shred structures. You can solo the Titans super, super easily. I'm sure you can like solo objectives like fire super easily. It's kind of a for fun thing, but I actually think it's pretty viable. I think it's the same thing as Dan, or the same thing as Cupid. You just don't see it a lot because I don't think Dan's is the greatest. Fenrir aspect will be my first do not pick ever. That is only in its current state, to be clear. I think maybe in the future, if numbers get tweaked, this could be different. What his aspect does is it reduces damage on his 3, but it reduces damage on his 3 and stats on the 2, but it makes your 2 apply to all allies within a certain range, and it makes your 3 apply a slow to the enemies that you hit with it. The slow on the 3 is 15%, really low, and the damage cuts your 3 in half, basically. I think in some cases it actually cuts it in more than half. Like, I think it gets worse as you level it up. Like, at the start, rank 1, it's half the damage. And then I think as the game goes on, it's like 40% of the damage when you're up to the top base ranks. So yeah, it completely butchers his Brutalize, which is your main source of damage, and really the thing that makes you threatening as a support if you were going to play him in that role, which is kind of what this aspect has been for. It's meant for him to be a support. And then the 2, very similar thing. The stats on it are just really low. Normally, Fenrir 2 gives 55 strength. With the aspect, I think it either gives 20 or 25, like under half of what it normally gives. The attack speed's pretty good. It's 20%, and the lifesteal is decent at 10%. But yeah, it's just pretty weak. I think, in my opinion, if you're playing Fenrir support, you're playing it to beads burn and kill people with your ult, and then you're playing it to be a damage threat with your 3. The character really doesn't do much else. I think this aspect is a cool idea to make him fit in support more, and to buff and highlight that version of him. But I think it just needs to be tweaked a little bit. Either the brutalized damage needs to be a little bit higher to justify losing that much for the slow, or I think the 2 needs to give more stats so that you can actually max the 2 and have it feel good. But with where it's at right now, maxing the 2 feels bad, and it doesn't give you enough to max it and have it feel impactful for your teammates. Geb aspect, I'm kind of a fan of. I feel like nobody likes it, but I actually think it's quite strong. I'm going to put it... maybe it is for fun. I actually think it's solid. I think it's kind of similar to the other stuff. Maybe I'll put it underneath Cupid. It's probably the worst of this tier, actually. Okay, what Geb aspect does is it makes it so his 2 no longer knocks up, but it goes into like an entire 360 radius around him. So it's a shockwave that comes out of his body and goes in all directions. And it does max damage at every single distance. So normally Geb, the further away from his 2 you are, the less damage you take. It removes that negative from his kit. So if you build full damage Geb and you want to play to like clear waves and do stuff like that, and play from range, you can poke people really easily. It also gives you a cooldown reset on your 2 for every enemy that you hit with it, including minions. So it's half a second for each enemy that gets hit. So if you hit a wave, you get 3 seconds refunded from your 2 cooldown. If you clear teleporter camps, you get 3.5 seconds off because there's 7 creeps if you pull both of them. It's actually really, really good for farming. And I think on solo Geb, I think this aspect is pretty solid. I don't think you need this aspect to play Geb solo, but I think it makes him trade and fight a lot better than not having it. And a lot of the time, you don't actually need the extra CC from your 2 because just having your alt and maybe an active item like Gargoyle or something like that is more than enough to kill somebody in a combo, especially if your teammates are around. Hecate aspect is pretty similar. I think it's solid. I think the power level of Hecate aspect is actually quite strong, or quite weak, I'm sorry, but I think the idea is really strong. So the thing that Hecate aspect does is instead of being able to refire your 2 and put it on the ground and do damage, you deploy your 2, and anybody in that circle, in that area from the enemy team does 10% less ability damage. And whenever they use an ability, it will send down a 2-shot at them that's the same size as your normal 2, and it'll basically like home on them on their location whenever they pop something. And that works on stance swap abilities. So if you're Hecate, you pop your 2 and Uller stance swaps, it throws a 2 at them. It does reduce damage, does like maybe 210 max damage at rank 5 or 180 max damage at rank 5, something like that, base damage. And it doesn't scale as well, but it's constantly proccing. And it has like a half-second internal cooldown. So basically, every half second, somebody uses an ability while they're inside of your thing. It hits them with damage, and no internal cooldown, just permanently everybody on the enemy team does 10% less ability damage while they're in the circle. I actually thought this thing would be really broken in its previous form, which was 20% damage reduction. They actually nerfed it. At 10%, I think it's still strong, and I think it's really playable to do like Hecate support, but I don't think it's broken or anything. I'm going to actually move this up. I think it is actually quite good. Hercules, this is another do not pick ever. This aspect makes it so that instead of his 3 returning more health to him based on how much damage he took and giving him attack speed, it will heal nearby allies based on the damage that you took. Or I don't know if it's actually based on the damage you took. I don't remember that part of it exactly. The reason I think it's bad is the way that Herc functions. He needs to be able to stand in front of people's faces and frontline and try to fish for 2s and see if you can hit somebody to engage a fight. A big thing that lets him do that, besides building tanky, is being able to regenerate health based on how much damage he took when you pop your 3. And without that, you're losing a ton of survivability. And most of the time, that heal is going to go to waste if the fight hasn't actually started yet. Like, if you're the only one who's taken damage, healing your teammates is meaningless. And normally, Herc is the first one into a team fight. So that scenario will happen a lot more than you think. So yeah, I'm not a huge fan of it. I could see... I think I could be wrong on this, and maybe it's better than I think, but I think it's really bad. Okay. There's going to be a lot of non-knowers out there. But Khepri aspect is broken, and if you're going to play Khepri, you should toggle it on every single game. Maybe I'll make a separate video on Khepri aspect. I talked about it a little bit on stream for those of you who saw that. This thing's broken. What Khepri aspect tells you it does is not actually what it does. What Khepri aspect is kind of marketed as, if you will, is that when you pluck somebody, you auto attack them during the pluck, but you don't pull them backwards. That's supposed to be the trade-off, which is mostly true. The negative is that you don't pull them backwards, you don't displace them, but they stay grabbed, they stay silenced. The CC duration is the exact same. You still do the exact same damage on the base pluck, and you still get protections while plucking them. So all of those are normal. What the aspect actually does is it basically applies Fenrir Brutalize to Khepri Pluck. So Khepri Pluck on the aspect does not do 3 auto attacks worth of damage, but it hits them 3 times with a white number that applies auto attack effects. Okay? When you level Khepri Pluck to rank 3, it'll hit them with a 4th auto attack, or, you know, a 4th white number. You can never get to 5, and building attack speed doesn't give you more white hits, like more basic attack hits. And the reason this is broken is because that damage on the auto attack number, the white hit, does 5% of your base health per hit. So when you have Khepri Pluck at rank 3, you do 20% of your health as damage while you pluck somebody. So basically, your pluck does its base damage, which I think is like 210. And then you do 4 auto attack, you know, air quotes auto attacks, which are worth about another like 150 to 200 damage. And then you add 5% of your base health per hit, so 20% of your health. And that adds like another 200 damage or, you know, whatever it is at the time when you have it. It makes his pluck one-shot people. You don't need to build auto attack. You don't need to build crit. You don't need to build kins to make this thing be good. You can literally play full normal Khepri, and this thing is just good. I'll show you guys a quick little chart here, actually. Let me find it. Here you go. This is Khepri aspect. This is some testing I did before Vegas. Here on the left, I'll make this bigger. Here on the left is normal Khepri. So this is me hitting a Ymir bot. It does 61, 100, 138, 177, 215. With the aspect, here's what I'm hitting for. 236, 275, 372, 410, 449. This is at level 9. I tested this. And the reason I tested at level 9 is because level 9 is the earliest you can level an ability to rank 5. That's not your ultimate. So a level 9 Khepri can hit for 450 with a single ability. That is broken. Like, this is with no items. This is no items, no intelligence built, no extra health built, no nothing. And the reason I said this is where your eyes need to go is because rank 2 pluck and rank 1 pluck, you hit 3 auto attacks. And rank 3 pluck, you unlock the 4th auto attack. And you never get to 5. It's 3, 3, 4, 4, 4. So basically, if you play Khepri, you should always have the aspect on. You should always put 3 points in your pluck. And then you should level the rest of your abilities however you want. The thing's broken. I'm not saying Khepri is the best god in the game or anything like that. But if you are playing Khepri, you should always have the aspect on. I think it is literally always better. The only downside is you don't drag people backwards, but sometimes it's actually better not to drag them backwards. That's a very situational thing. Yeah, I think this aspect is broken, and I think people just don't know exactly how it works yet. Loki, I think his aspect is also really good. I think it's kind of sleeper good. Basically, what it does is you lose the damage on your one entirely, but it gives you the ability to apply stealth to a teammate. So you have 2 people being stealthed instead of 1. That is a really, really strong mechanic. I think as more gods and as more interactions get added into the game, this is going to be really broken. And I think depending on the state of proc items and how good they are, so items like Soul Reaver, will dictate if this can be good or not. There's a world where you could play something like Loki solo or Loki support, and you could build like tank active items, and then build Soul Reaver as your only damage item, and then just like you always poke with your 2, and then your main engage is stealthing in another character. So imagine, I don't know what a great example would be. Like, imagine you stealthed an Artemis into a team fight and got her into a really good spot, and then she just dropped her boar and then nuked everybody. Something like that, I think could be really, really strong. You stealth a set, you know, a set mid, and you play Loki support, and you stealth him into the back line, you just kill everybody, you know? And he doesn't have to lose his mobility. Mordred, I think, is also a use every game aspect. I think if you're going to play Mordred, I think it should be with this aspect. Mordred's only purpose currently in the game, or his only strength, is to be a bully in the early game and to box people and brawl and do stuff like that. I do think the knock-up, actually, maybe I'll just put it in really good, because I think it's good both ways. I don't know that you have to use it every game. His mobility in lane and his ability to like kind of juke and fight, it's kind of like having Arthur mobility, but on a character that kind of weaves a little bit cleaner with auto attacks than Arthur does. I think it's really, really strong. I don't really have much more to add to that. It's just simple. It just makes, I guess I didn't say what it does. Sorry. It makes it so that instead of your charge, your like dash, your in like jump bar dash or whatever, instead of that being a knock up that does damage, it deals less damage and no longer knocks up. But every time you hit an enemy god with an ability, you reset the cooldown on it and you get to do it again. So you can dash 1, dash 2, dash 3, dash. And you can just constantly do that and weave in and out of fights and hit people and juke abilities. Neith aspect, also really good in my opinion. It makes it so that when you detonate your weaves, they no longer root, but they buff your attack speed. And when you ult somebody, you get the full benefit of that buff. It makes her really, really solid, not as a full auto attack build character, but kind of as being able to be an objective damage dealer better than she is before. So you can do things like pull Fire Giant and then ult an enemy who's coming into the pit, and then as your team is zoning them or whatever, you get a huge damage increase, and you can either use that to hit their front line and kill them, or you can use it to just auto attack down fire. It makes her better with items like kins and just other like, you know, proc items. Yeah, I think it's really good. I think it's just a style shift, but I think it's really good. Nemesis, I think, is for fun but bad. The idea of this is really cool. It makes it so that her ult, instead of dealing % health damage, it kind of functions like a health swap. So you like, I think you're supposed to like kind of meet in the middle. So if they're 80% health and you're 20%, I think it sets you both in the middle. I'm not 100% if I'm right on that. I don't think it fully swaps you. And I think it is affected by anti-heal, so it's not as strong as it maybe could be. But yeah, the kind of idea behind it is you would play like a tanky Nemesis, you would engage, you would get low, and then you would ult somebody and kind of swap health and then try to kill them. That's the idea behind it. I think it sounds really cool. Maybe people haven't figured out the best way to use it yet, but I think in practicality it's not that great yet. Ra might have the best aspect of being role dependent. His aspect is sick. It makes it so that your ult is able to be movable while you aim, like while you fire it. So you can press 4, and then you're able to kind of shift flick your camera and aim your ult and kind of move it and track enemies as you're adjusting. And it also heals allies and yourself who get hit by the ult. So it heals you no matter what, but if you ult a teammate, it will heal them. And then it also makes it so that your 3 can lock onto somebody, kind of like a Geb Shield or a Khepri ult, very similar targeter to those two abilities. And your heal will actually follow them wherever they go. So rather than people having to stand in your heal, you can just place your heal on them and it follows them. It makes him really, really good as a soul laner. It makes him really obnoxious as kind of like a support utility character. I actually think you could play this character support with this aspect and it would be pretty solid. You obviously don't have any hard CC in your kit, which is kind of rough. But in terms of giving your characters, like, you give your teammates a ton of healing and a ton of stats, it's actually quite good. Thanatos aspect is broken. This is the king of broken aspects. Honestly, it should have a tier. It should honestly have a tier above. And we're just going to name this one Thanatos. Okay? I actually think you should never, ever, ever load into the game without using this thing. It is so broken. What Thanatos aspect does is it makes it so that he loses the healing on his ult, like kill reset. But he gains damage on his 3, gains base damage on his 3. His 3 also scales off of his max HP. And his passive makes it so that instead of healing from last hits on creeps, you gain maximum HP. And you gain like 1.5 max HP per creep killed. And I think you gain like 25 max HP per god kill. That doesn't sound like a lot, but throughout a course of a game, Thanatos base HP is like 2.4 thousand. You can routinely, without any tank items, get to like 3.6 to 4,000, 3.6 thousand, 3,600 to 4,000 HP every single game, building 0 health. It adds up a lot faster than you would think. It is really, really broken. And the way that maximum health increases work in Smite, it basically heals you. So like, let's say you get a level up bonus in lane and you get 80 health from a level up bonus. You don't gain 80 maximum health. You get healed for 80 and gain 80 maximum health. Like, it applies to both your current and your maximum health, not just the maximum. So because you're constantly killing creeps and you're constantly farming, you're technically constantly healing from this aspect anyways. And you still get the healing from your 1 as well. So it's not like you lose all of your sustain. It is so broken on him. It makes him able to do so much damage and be so obnoxious and be so tanky while also killing people. It's just crazy. This thing is broken. Mori aspect, I think, is also really good and role dependent. Honestly, maybe it's just like a shift, but I think it's really good. So the Mori aspect makes it so that you no longer have stealth from your 3. But your decoy is able to be teleported to within a certain window. I think you have like 3 seconds or something like that. I think it scales up in ranks of your 3, like how many points you have in it. It's really, really good for tank Morrigans, I think. So if you're like a support Mori or a soul lane Morrigan, you can throw your decoy one direction and then walk the other, and you're able to avoid ganks that way, kind of like how you would use a Chaac axe to kind of like make people have to play both where you are and where your axe is. Mori can do that with her decoy. The other thing that it does is it lets you check bushes really easily and engage on people. So you can throw your decoy into a bush where you know people are, and if they try to hit you, you could like teleport behind them and then stun them and engage on them, you know, like do all of that stuff. Or you can just constantly do it to threaten and engage, you know, like if you're just staring at each other on a siege or on an objective fight, you can just throw your decoy in, make them hit it, make them forget about it, and then you can teleport to it to avoid something. Like, it's really, really good. I think Morrigan as a character is pretty broken in general. So this thing is just kind of a different way of playing. Stealth is really good. I think this is really good. I think it kind of depends. In general, I'd say tank Mori better with the kind of like swap, you know, like teleporting to your decoy. And I think damage Mori is probably better with stealth so that you can open up and one-shot somebody. But yeah, I think that's it, guys. This went way longer than I expected. Honestly, I'm just tired and I can't speak. You know how I am. But yeah, hopefully the video was helpful. Let me know what you guys think. Do you think I am sleeping on any of these? Do you think any of these are kind of whack? Are you a Khepri believer? And if you're not, I'll drop a video to change your mind because this shit is broken. In any case, hope everyone has a good one, and thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.